What if I told you that the clothes on your back and the clothes on the backs of kings, queens, and emperors were made in a small town in the north of England that most people have never heard of? What if that town was so powerful, so extraordinary, so essential to the modern world that without it, the Industrial Revolution might never have happened the way it did? In this video, we're going back to Huddersfield in the 1800s, and by the end, you'll understand why this town didn't just make cloth, it made history. There's a building sitting quietly on the edge of Huddersfield, a Victorian mansion set back from the road, surrounded by parkland, its stone facade watching over the town it was built to overlook. It's called Ravensknoll Hall. Today, it houses the Tolson Memorial Museum, one of the most remarkable collections of local history in the entire north of England. Inside its walls, you'll find Roman coins dug from West Yorkshire fields, prehistoric tools, natural history specimens, and most importantly, textiles, hundreds of them, wool, cloth, the raw materials and the finished products of an industry that once made this corner of Yorkshire the most economically powerful place on earth outside of London. But here's what strikes me every time I walk through those doors. Most people have no idea. Most people drive past Ravensknoll Hall without a second glance. Most people, even people who live in Huddersfield, don't fully understand what happened here, what was built here, what was lost here. So today, using historical records and AI reconstruction, we're going to change that. We're going back to Huddersfield in the 1800s, to the mills, the markets, the machinery, the men and women who worked themselves to the bone to clothe the world, and we're going to see it as it actually was. Let's start with geography, because geography is everything in this story. Huddersfield sits in the Colne Valley and the Holme Valley, deep glacial valleys carved into the Pennine moorland of West Yorkshire. And those valleys, for centuries, were the perfect natural factory. Fast-running streams tumbling down from the moors provided water power for early mills. The soft Pennine water, naturally low in minerals, was ideal for washing and processing wool without damaging the fibers. The local sheep produced some of the finest wool in England, and the local people, tough, independent, deeply skilled, had been weaving cloth in their homes since the Middle Ages. By the time the Industrial Revolution arrived, Huddersfield wasn't starting from scratch. It had been building to this moment for 500 years. The Cloth Hall, the heart of everything. Here's something that has been almost completely erased from the modern town. For over a century, the beating commercial heart of Huddersfield was not a factory. It was a market. The Huddersfield Cloth Hall, built in 1766 and expanded throughout the early 1800s, was one of the great trading buildings of the industrial age. A vast colonnaded structure standing in the center of town, it was where cloth producers from across the valleys, weavers, dyers, finishers, brought their finished pieces to sell to merchants and buyers from across Britain and the world. On market days, the Cloth Hall was electric. Hundreds of traders crowding into the covered arcades, bolts of cloth laid across wooden trestles, buyers examining fabric in the cold northern light, deals struck in dialect that a Southerner would barely have recognized as English. German merchants, French buyers, American traders, all of them coming to Huddersfield, all of them knowing that if you wanted the finest wool cloth in the world, this was where you came. The Cloth Hall was demolished in 1930. Its site is now a road junction. But in the Tolson Memorial Museum, the records, the ledgers, the cloth samples, they survive. And they tell us exactly what was traded and exactly how extraordinary it was. The mills, cathedrals of industry. But the Cloth Hall was only the front of the story. Behind it, up in the valleys, along every stream and river, the mills were running. By 1850, there were over 100 textile mills within a few miles of Huddersfield town center. Let me describe one for you. Imagine a building 5 or 6 stories high, built from the same dark gritstone that forms the Pennine moorland around it, walls 3 feet thick, small windows, not for the comfort of the workers inside, but because glass was expensive and heat needed to be retained. Inside, the noise was extraordinary. The power loom, mechanized weaving on industrial scale, produced a sound that contemporary accounts describe as physically painful. A relentless crashing, banging, rhythmic thunder that filled every room and didn't stop for 12, 14, sometimes 16 hours a day. The floors vibrated. The air was thick with wool dust, tiny fibers floating in the light from the windows, coating the lungs of every worker who breathed it. And those workers? The workers are the part of the story that the history books have always moved past too quickly. The Tolson Memorial Museum holds something that I find genuinely moving every time I look at it. Photographs. Actual Victorian photographs of Huddersfield mill workers. Taken in the 1870s and 1880s, they show men, women, and children standing outside mill buildings or posed stiffly in photographic studios in their Sunday clothes, their best clothes, their only good clothes, looking directly into the camera with expressions of extraordinary dignity. These were not wealthy people. A skilled weaver in Huddersfield in 1860 might earn between 12 and 18 shillings a week, enough to rent a stone terrace house up the hillside, enough to feed a family, barely, enough to send one child to the newly established board schools if they were lucky. The working day began at 5:30 in the morning. Workers walked to the mill, often a mile or more up steep valley roads in darkness in all weathers, across cobblestones slick with frost in winter and mud in the wet months, which in West Yorkshire was most of the year. The mill gates closed at 6. If you were late, even by minutes, you were fined. If you were injured, and injuries at the loom were common, fingers lost to shuttles, hands caught in gearing, you received no compensation. You simply stopped earning. And yet, these people built something extraordinary. They built a community so tight, so resilient, so culturally rich that it produced brass bands, working men's clubs, cooperative societies, political movements, and eventually the very trade unions that changed the relationship between workers and employers across the entire industrialized world. The Huddersfield textile workers didn't just make cloth, they made the modern labor movement. The Luddites, the story nobody tells properly. Here's the open loop I promised you at the beginning. There's a word that gets used constantly in modern life, in politics, in technology debates, in newspapers, usually as an insult: Luddite. It means someone who is opposed to new technology, someone who is backward-looking, someone who fears progress. But here's the truth that almost nobody knows. The original Luddites were not fools. They were not backward. They were not simply afraid of machines. They were skilled craftsmen, croppers and weavers working in the valleys around Huddersfield, and in 1811 and 1812, they rose up in one of the most dramatic episodes of industrial resistance Britain has ever seen. The croppers were the elite of the textile trade, men who finished woolen cloth in hand with enormous heavy shears, giving the fabric its smooth surface. It took years to master the skill. It was dangerous, skilled, and well-paid work. And then the mill owners introduced the cropping frame, a machine that could do the work of dozens of croppers in a fraction of the time. The croppers didn't smash machines because they were stupid. They smashed them because they understood with absolute clarity that those machines would destroy their livelihoods, their communities, and their way of life. They were right. In April 1812, a group of Luddites attacked Rawfolds Mill in the Spen Valley, just a few miles from Huddersfield. Mill owner William Cartwright had fortified his building and armed his guards. 2 Luddites were shot dead. The attack failed. Within months, the British government had deployed more soldiers to suppress the Luddite uprising than Wellington had at the time fighting Napoleon in Spain. 17 men were hanged at York Castle in January 1813. the Luddite movement was crushed, and their story, their real story, their humanity, their entirely rational resistance was buried under the word that was made from their name. The canal and the railway, Huddersfield's arteries. No town becomes a global trading center without infrastructure, and Huddersfield had two of the most remarkable pieces of transport infrastructure in the entire north of England. The Huddersfield Narrow Canal, completed in 1101, was an engineering marvel. To connect Huddersfield to the National Canal Network, engineers had to get through the Pennines, the spine of England. The solution was the Stan Edge Tunnel. At 3 miles long, cut directly through the moorland rock, it was the longest, highest, and deepest canal tunnel in Britain. Boats were legged through it, boatmen lying on their backs on the roof of the vessel and walking their feet against the tunnel ceiling to propel the boat through the darkness. The journey took 3 to 4 hours, just to get cloth to market. Then, in 1847, the railway arrived. Huddersfield Railway Station, still standing today in all its magnificent classical glory, its 6 Ionic columns dominating St. George's Square, opened as one of the grandest stations in the north of England. And with the railway, everything accelerated. Raw wool in, finished cloth out, faster, cheaper, in greater quantities than anyone had previously imagined possible. The town exploded. The town that dressed the world. By the 1870s and 1880s, Huddersfield cloth was everywhere. The finest worsted suiting, lightweight, perfectly finished, holding its shape through the longest day, came from the mills of the Colne Valley. It dressed the officers of the British Army. It dressed the European aristocracy. It dressed the merchants of New York and Boston and Philadelphia. Queen Victoria's household ordered from Yorkshire suppliers. So did the courts of Prussia, Austria, and Russia. There is a phrase that was used in the trade, West Riding Finish. It meant the finest quality of wool cloth processing available anywhere in the world, and it meant Huddersfield. The wealth this generated was visible in stone. The grand Victorian civic buildings that still define Huddersfield townscape, the town hall, the railway station, the philosophical hall, the mechanics institutes, all of them were built on the profits of cloth. Ravensnoll Hall itself, the building that now houses the Tolson Memorial Museum, was built in 1859 by James Tolson, a man whose family fortune came directly from the textile trade. When you walk through those museum doors today, you are walking into the direct physical legacy of the industry that built this town. The decline and what was lost. But every peak has a descent. By the early 20th century, competition from cheaper overseas producers was beginning to bite. After the First World War, which took a devastating toll on the young men of West Yorkshire, as it did everywhere, the mills began to struggle. The interwar years brought unemployment and hardship to the valley communities that had been built entirely around the textile trade. After the Second World War, the decline accelerated. Mill after mill closed. Machinery was sold or scrapped. The communities that had formed around them, the terraced streets climbing the hillsides, the chapels, the working men's clubs, the brass bands, all of them felt the wound. By the 1980s, the textile industry that once made Huddersfield the cloth capital of the world had been reduced to a fraction of its former scale. The mills that survived were converted into apartments, offices, restaurants, art spaces. The ones that didn't survive simply disappeared, demolished, their sites cleared, their history scattered, and the knowledge, the extraordinary accumulated craft knowledge of generations of skilled workers, that knowledge largely died with the last generation that held it. And this is where the Tolson Memorial Museum becomes not just a local attraction, but something genuinely essential. Because inside Ravensnoll Hall, the story has been kept alive. The cloth samples tell you what West Riding finish actually felt like, the weight of it, the fineness of the weave, the extraordinary skill embedded in every inch. The tools and machinery tell you how it was made, the jenny, the loom, the cropping shears, the technologies that transformed raw penine wool into the finest fabric in the world. The photographs tell you who made it, those dignified, tired, proud faces staring back at you across a century and a half. And the documents, the ledgers, the trade records, the letters, tell you how it was sold, and to whom, and for what price. The Tulsan is not just a museum, it is the memory of a community. It is the only place where the full story of Huddersfield's industrial century is gathered together and preserved. Huddersfield in the 1800s was not a romantic place. It was not easy or comfortable or clean. It was a place of extraordinary labor and very ordinary suffering, of long hours and short wages and lives measured out in the rhythmic crashing of the power loom. But it was also a place of extraordinary human achievement. The men and women who built this industry, who walked down those frost-covered cobblestones before dawn, who breathed the wool dust, who lost fingers and years and sometimes their health to the machines, they did something remarkable. They took the raw material of the Pennine landscape and they turned it into something the whole world wanted. They built communities of astonishing cultural richness out of the hard material of industrial labor. They fought, sometimes literally, with hammers in the dark outside fortified mills, to their right to dignity and fair treatment. And then they were largely forgotten. Not by the Tulsan Memorial Museum, not by the valleys themselves, which still carry the memory in their stone, and not, I hope, after watching this video, by you. The next time you put on a well-cut wool suit, the next time you run your hand across fine worsted fabric, the next time you stand in Huddersfield and look up at those grand Victorian buildings, think about what was built here, think about who built it, and think about what it cost them.